Now, by very, very quick show of hands, how many of you in this auditorium over the last year saw someone that you know jump out of their car to do the In My Feelings challenge on Instagram? No one? Come on. Few of y'all? So let me break this down to all of you. First of all, this session is different than probably a lot of sessions that you're going to go to over the course of the next couple days because I'm all about real talk. I spent 10 years working in corporate marketing. You see some of the logos here on the screen. Ran social media at Winn-Dixie, Save-A-Lot, LinkedIn, BMC Software, and now I'm on the flip side of my career where I work independent. I work with brands as a consultant. I have a media agency in Guild Media Co. But I'm also an author. And what I like to do in my talks is just keep it 100 because I know a lot of the challenges that you face is internally struggling with agency partners, with your own C-suite. And through this talk, the end of marketing, what I'm going to break down for you, fundamentally speaking, is why you need to focus more on taking everyday people and making them the faces of your company. Now, before we get started, I want to invite you to follow me on Twitter as well as on Instagram. You can find me at CarlosGill83. I'm really active on there. I'd love for you to follow me. And also, throughout this session, if there's something that you learn, there's a key takeaway, please be sure to tweet or Instagram using the conference hashtag, which is hashtag TGS2020, or you can use hashtag TheGathering. Cool? So as we move forward, I do have a book. It's called The End of Marketing. It's a best-selling book, I just want to say. Hopefully you'll feel compelled after this talk to go over to Amazon. You can go to endofmarketingbook.com and get yourself a copy. Now, why did I write this book, The End of Marketing? Well, first and foremost, like I said before, I'm one of you. I come from the brand marketing world. I know the challenges that we face internally. I know about outsourcing. I know about hiring agency partners. I know about uncertainty that comes along with new technologies, new leadership and organizations. So first and foremost, I wrote this book to help all of you really future-proof your jobs. And over the next couple of slides, you're going to learn why. But also to really help all of you internally make your jobs much easier when we start talking about things like employee advocacy and really humanizing your brand in order to stay relevant. Now, by very, very quick show of hands, and please be honest with me, we're here in a very tight-knit community here at The Gathering. How many of you woke up this morning and the first thing that you did was you went onto your Facebook to see what your favorite brand of all time posted? Look around. Look around. Big auditorium here, not a single person. Now, let me flip this question on its head. How many of you use social media in your business? A lot of you. How many of your brands or companies that you work for have an active social media presence with the hopes of engaging customers, whether you're on the B2B side or B2C? Almost all of you. Now, since we're getting to know each other here, how many of you in this room enjoy being sold to? I know I don't. I'm very loyal to the brands that I shop with, Ted Baker, Ferragamo, Gucci, Estate Mary, I Fly, American Airlines. Very, very consistent. But again, this is all about real talk. I don't follow a single one of these brands on social media. And the reason why is because I don't like being sold to. If I want to know what sale you have, I can go to your website. I can go to Nordstrom's. I can go actually engage with you in person in the real world instead of the online world. And I ask you this in terms of do you like being sold to? Because for the most part, what's our job as marketers or as communicators? It's to sell. So going forward, and you might want to write this down, what you need to do is focus less on selling and focus more on engaging. So engage more and sell less. And you're probably saying, well, what the hell does that mean? And I'll tell you. It's using the internet, using social media as tools to identify who's speaking about your brand, your products, your services, and also your competition. And spend more time having conversations with who these people are, which are consumers, as opposed to just posting sales rhetoric every single day. You know, you're going to hear me talk about this in a moment, that moments actually are more important today than marketing. If you've been paying attention on social media the last couple days, what marketing campaign are people talking about right now? No, they're talking about politics. We know that. That's every day. But right now they're talking about Whopper. Thank you. They're talking about the moldy Whopper from Burger King. A couple months ago, people were having battles on Twitter in terms of who had the better chicken sandwich, Popeyes or Chick-fil-A or Wendy's. So you see where I'm going with this. Moments today are actually where you need to insert your brand, whether you sell cheeseburgers or you sell insurance or you sell real estate. You need to go where the current is. Because this example here actually is a scene from one of my favorite movies called Castaway. Have any of you ever seen it? Yeah, in the movie, Tom Hanks is stranded on an island. He's got Wilson, his imaginary friend that he talks to. Well, guess what? We are all the digital equivalent of Tom Hanks speaking to a volleyball, which is speaking to ourselves. We post content. We hope that this content just overperforms and overdelivers, and then ultimately it falls short of our expectations. Because the reality is that most content today is a sales pitch of some sort. You know, I was having this conversation last night with a gentleman, and we're talking about CEO social media. And I don't want to name the brand, but recently I was on Twitter, and I saw a sponsored tweet from a CEO of a very well-known Fortune 100 company. And there was zero engagement on it, and every single tweet in his feed looked like it was written by their corporate communications team. It felt like an ad because it was. And that's where we need to move away from social media and go back to why people are on social media in the first place. And it's to socialize. So, you know, look, I have a lot of friends in this industry. I've been doing this for a very long time. I know what the gurus and thought leaders out there tell you. But what you need to do is immediately hit the reset button on everything that you've been told about social media marketing and selling online. And what we need to do is take a very quick moment to rest in peace, essentially, or rebrand in peace as marketers. Because I get how this game works. All of you in this room are under scrutiny to show net positive ROI. But what if net positive ROI at the end of the day isn't always measured in dollars and cents or clicks? What if it's actually measured in sentiment? What if it's measured by share of voice? What if it's measured by being able to attract and retain top-tier talent at your organization? Now, what you need to do going forward to win this game of marketing as it evolves is you need to adapt or die. And I know that sounds really grave and really harsh, but let me give you a couple of examples here. How many of you have heard of artificial intelligence, otherwise known as AI? Okay. As I was writing The End of Marketing, the most challenging chapter that I had to write was in the very last chapter, because I don't have a crystal ball. I can't predict the future. But what I can only make recommendations based on is data and where we've come from. It's pretty safe to say that since the invention of the iPhone, the world has greatly changed around us. Now, what happens as technology continues to advance over the next 10 years, and you have artificial intelligence that can actually do our jobs for us? What happens when maybe 1 or 2 years from now, your boss is sitting in a room like this, and you have some data scientist that says to him or her, hey, guess what? You don't need a community manager anymore, because with our technology, we can crawl all of Twitter and instantly respond to every single person, because guess what? You have 10 years of history on the internet or on social media already that we know, and like we see this at my company as well. The clients that we work with when we do community management, it's always like the same FAQs. So you take all those FAQs, you take all the answers, you have AI now automatically respond. Guess what? You'll need community managers. What happens when AI replaces the way that you create content or optimizes content in real time based on your customers are responding to you, or based on what your customers' needs are, based on the data that you have? Now you don't need a design team. You don't need social media managers. So I say this because what your job needs to be over this next decade is, first of all, create a brand around yourself. And if you're not doing that, start doing it ASAP. And B, you need to be the conductor inside of your organization that owns the strategy around AI. Now, what you see here on the screen is Lil Miquela. For all intents and purposes, she looks like your average 18, 19-year-old influencer. Hell, Lil Miquela has photos at Coachella. She's collaborating with J Balvin and big-time celebrities. She's collaborating with Gucci and Supreme and Louis V. But guess what? She's not real. This is a CGI influencer. So to all my influencer homies that are in the room, I hate to say it, you're kind of fucked. Because what's going to happen is, again, when brands start realizing, well, we can create an influencer that looks like the demographic we're trying to reach, We can create an influencer that we own their likeness, and we don't have to worry about them going out and posting something stupid. Then why do you need influencers? You look at the new face of KFC. This is Colonel Sanders. The new sexy-looking Colonel Sanders. You know, I grew up in the South. I grew up in South Florida, in Fort Lauderdale. And growing up as a kid, the face of KFC was always what? Kind of a stocky, chubbier, old white guy. Well, KFC, just like a lot of fast food brands, are struggling to keep up and stay relevant in the eyes of millennials and Generation Z. So this is the fix. Create a CGI animated George Clooney, Brad Pitt-looking Colonel that has washboard abs and a tattoo going down his side. No joke. If you go to @KFC on Instagram, you will be amazed. So what does this all set the stage for? Well, it's this. Going forward, every single brand will need to make people the faces of their company. And guess what? We see this happen every single day. You see some of the names here on the screen. Your Jake and Logan Pauls, Lil Miquela, President Trump, DJ Khaled, Kim K. These are all brands. And what they're doing is they're selling to you every single day through the content that they post. So you have this like battle that's happening on social media, where you have the online world and you have the real world. In the real world, right, all these billion and trillion-dollar corporations that many of you work for, they're powerful, right? They have influence. They have brick-and-mortar stores that people are going into every single day to swipe credit cards. But in the online world, that same influence doesn't translate over. And the reason why is because us as people don't want to be sold to, we want to be engaged, but we buy from people and we trust people. We trust friends, we trust strangers. How many times have you been on your Instagram and you're looking through your Instagram stories and a friend posts a screenshot from Spotify from Drake's latest song or your favorite artist's song, and now all of a sudden you're going to Spotify and you're listening to it? How many times do you see someone wearing a pair of Yeezys and you want Yeezys? How many times do you see an influencer, someone you know that's on vacation, and now you want to stay at the same resort where they went to? It happens all the time. Now, since we're here at this, kind of very secretive, exclusive conference, let me let you in on a secret that not a lot of gurus or thought leaders really openly talk about. And it's so simple, such a basic concept, but the secret today to selling online is to building a brand that people like and want to buy from. Think about this for a moment. You have Kanye West that all of a sudden found God. He's going to churches all over the place. Thousands of people are showing up to hear the gospel of Kanye. Why is that? It's because people like Kanye West. So they're showing up to church because Kanye West is going to be there. People, at the end of the day, can be manipulated through other people, whereas brands don't have that same power and ability. And we see this happening through motivational speakers, your Tony Robbins, your Les Brown, your Eric Thomas. We're seeing this happen with business personalities, Gary Vee, Ty Lopez, Mel Robbins. We're seeing this happen right in front of us every day where, yes, we're not waking up in the morning and going to Facebook or Instagram to see what our favorite brands are posting, but what we're doing instead is we're gravitating to these social networks to see what our favorite business personas are doing or what our favorite influencers are doing. And these influencers, these personas, they understand the game, which is, again, using your face and your voice to build a likable brand that people trust and want to buy from. So going forward, my recommendation to you is you actually start developing personas within your own organization. And you have three kind of distinct options or paths to go down here. One is to educate, the other is to inspire, and the other is to entertain. Most companies, by design, are boring, and they cannot entertain. But I tell you what, every single company has the ability to educate your customers on how to use your products, how to use your services. So you look at YouTube, which from my perspective, YouTube is probably the best social network that exists that no one ever even talks about. And the reason why is because YouTube is owned by Google. As we know, Google practically owns the internet. And if you go on YouTube right now, what you're gonna find is a video library of videos, obviously, where people can learn how to do X, how to buy X, what to do with X. So whatever it is that you sell or you do, I recommend that you go on YouTube immediately and you start running some very basic searches that involve your product or service or even company name to see what exists out there. So I'm a big fan of education, hence why I do this kind of work. But with that being said, educating your customers or customers of competitors is a major key. The other around inspiring and entertaining, it's very simple. You take the employees within your organization, which are your greatest asset, they are the heart of your company, and you give them a microphone to storytell and share what a day in life is like, what it means to work at your company, what it means to be a part of the culture. Now, knowing your audience is extremely important because there's this misconception that if you have a presence on every single social network, that you're going to get all this reach and all this engagement and all these clicks, and that's going to resort to more sales, and I call bullshit on that. What you need to do is you need to have a presence on the social networks where your customers are. Because the reality is that these social networks are not all created equally. There are a lot of marketers running over to TikTok right now. And guess what? If you're a brand that doesn't sell to a much younger demographic, you're wasting your time. Whereas you should probably be investing more time on, say, Instagram or LinkedIn if you're in B2B. Because the audience just isn't there. Now, guess what? I've heard from other marketing colleagues, they're like, hey, I'm getting all this reach on TikTok. I'm getting all these views. It's like, so what? Are they converting? Are people actually reaching out to you and going to your website and doing anything? The answer is probably not. So knowing where your audience lives is going to be key to your success. My recommendation to you is that if you are a brand or a business or a marketer that's spending a lot of time divided across multiple social networks, what you probably want to do is find ways to scale back. Maybe get off Twitter if it's not driving ROI for you. Maybe deactivate your Facebook page and just run Facebook ads. Now, this right here is what I call the 4 pillars of a social media strategy. And this is a framework that I developed many years ago when I started social media at Winn-Dixie in Jacksonville, Florida. There's 4 key pillars, and we're going to address each one of these individually. But first is content. Content's what people see. It's what they feel. It's what they engage with. It's what makes them ultimately keep coming back to your brand. There's community. Community is obviously your audience who is paying attention. There's consistency, which is how often you show up on the scene, how often you show up to the party, because as we know, social media is 24/7, 365. And then there's conversion. Where a lot of marketers really mess up is they focus a lot of their time and attention on content, they skip community, they skip consistency, and then they go straight over to conversion. And then they're left really disappointed, wondering, well, why did we spend all this money on a Facebook ad campaign and it underdelivered? Or maybe they're on the wrong social networks. Or maybe they're just selling too hard. Now, I had this example here on the screen. How many of you last year participated in this like world record-breaking egg phenomena on Instagram? This was a moment in time, I think the creators of it are here at this conference. This was like a moment in time as a marketer that was a big aha moment. Because you had 54 million users like a single piece of content for a brandless, faceless, nameless egg. And that was like my oh shit moment. People really don't care about your latest sale. People don't care that you have this amazing 50% offer. What they want to do is be a part of something that's bigger than life, bigger than them. You know, I have here on the screen that Instagram is the world's largest photo album and Hallmark card. And it's one of the most important social networks to be on right now because of its daily active user count. But also because Instagram is very much a search engine itself. I would challenge you to go on Instagram and look up hashtag and type in whatever product it is that you sell, whatever city that you do business in, even the name of your company. There's times where I literally do a 5-second social media audit when I meet someone at a conference like this and they're asking for my help. Because the first thing I do is I go on Instagram and I type in hashtag their company name. And you'd be surprised how many, probably hundreds, thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of posts exist right now around either your company name or whatever service or product that you sell. And if you're not engaging with this audience, that's a missed opportunity. Now, I have a checklist here on the screen of how you can get the most out of Instagram. First of all, needless to say, post visually appealing content. Most marketers get caught up with the caption. Think about yourself as a consumer. Do you have time to read a long Facebook post, Instagram post, click see more on any one of these platforms? The answer is no. Most people, when they're scrolling in their newsfeed, they're scrolling so fast that if content doesn't visually stimulate them within like a fraction of a second, they're going to continue to swipe, okay? So make sure that you're focusing on the content that you post, being the actual visual is what stands out and gets people to engage, rather than go ahead and write this really long caption. The other point that I want to make is tagging locations. It's really important because you can actually growth hack Instagram to get your content in various locations. Like if you want your content to show up at the Atlanta airport, all you have to do is tag that Atlanta airport, and now your content is archived in that feed. Now, kind of staying along the lines of the Facebook house, since obviously they own Instagram, Facebook is one of the most powerful yet frustrating social networks to use. And the reason why is because you're competing against the algorithm. The reality is that Facebook wants your ad budget. So Facebook, very similar to LinkedIn and Twitter, are digital advertising companies. And I learned this working on the inside at LinkedIn, that these social networks are really disguised to you and me as social networks, but what they are is digital advertising platforms. So it's really important that you understand what the house rules are. Facebook is basically a casino. And for those of you that understand gambling terminology, the house is always going to win. And you're never going to beat the house at their own game. So it's really important that you know how the algorithm works. And quite frankly, this right here is scalable across networks. So the algorithm is very similar on LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, you name it. First of all, content that's original content that stays on the platform will be rewarded. Because here's what happens. So you go on Facebook, and you see a brand post, and now you click out of that brand post and go to a website. Now Facebook has lost your attention. So Facebook is not in business to make you money. Facebook is in business to make Facebook money. So you're operating on rented land. I think most of us in this room are smart enough that we understand that concept. So your objective needs to be, instead of driving people back to my blog, back to my website, back to my YouTube video, work within the infrastructure of Facebook to keep more of that traffic contained on the platform. The other is engagement. So the Facebook algorithm, just like any one of these social networks, will reward you based on how much engagement you have on the post. Now, what they will do is they will deprioritize your content if you're asking for the engagement. So asking for a like, asking for a comment, asking for a share, that will essentially deprioritize your content by Facebook. So instead, what I challenge you to do is create content that's so damn good that people will want to share it with their friends. You know, I have these conversations when I get together with friends and we kind of compare Instagram stats. I know it's kind of geeky and weird, but it happens. And what I always show to them is not how many people liked a post on my feed, but instead I look deeper at the metrics and see how many people are bookmarking content, how many people are sharing content. Because my objective as a marketer is to expand my reach. Yes, it's to grow revenue and profit, completely get that, but in order to get there, you have to expand your reach outside of the very small number of people that are seeing my content or your content. So really look deep at what these numbers mean. Now, let's address content for a moment. This is gonna be kind of a very awkward question since we just met. How many of you here are familiar with how Tinder works? I know we're at a business conference, but come on, guys. So if you're not raising your hand, you know, again, no judgment, it's a judgment-free zone. You've probably heard of how Tinder works. People go on Tinder, and they're doing what? They're swiping on each other based on what looks good to them so they can maybe meet and maybe mate. Business is no different. Business is no different than trying to hook up. In business, what you're trying to do is get a customer to think that you're appealing and think that you're sexy, so then they'll buy from you. So in this generation that we're in, which I call the Tinder generation of marketing, where people are swiping through content so fast, if your content doesn't look visually appealing within seconds, if your content looks like you are overtly trying to sell, guess what your audience is going to do? They're going to keep swiping. So again, let's focus on moments, not marketing. You have all these moments of time that are taking place seemingly every single day. Have any of you ever participated in a challenge? I know recently there was this broom challenge where I saw a bunch of people placing a broom to see if it would like not move. You know, here's some of the more popular ones. You have the Ice Bucket Challenge, the Shiggy Challenge last year, the Face App Challenge was really popular. If you can keep your finger on the pulse of what the internet finds relevant, then you have a chance of winning this game. The internet inherently is your customer, but they are not seeking you. What they're doing in their online world is, well, think about it. We're all consumers. We're going on social media to hear what our friends are talking about, to see what our favorite influencers are posting, what they're talking about. And we're not seeking out brands. But when there's moments, that's your opportunity to insert your brand, and for just a very brief period of time, benefit off the momentum wave that exists. Now, a lot of marketers will tell you that content is king. And have any of you heard that saying before, that philosophy? I call complete bullshit on that. Because the reality is that community is king. Without community, you have nothing. You have technology, you have noise. And here's a known fact. You don't need to create loads of content in order to be relevant or be in people's faces, because the reality is that conversations are a form of content marketing. You could probably go much further internally using your own resource as community managers day to day, rather than sitting in boardroom meetings coming up with what your content is going to look like for your next campaign. Because again, when you start thinking that social networks are search engines, the people are right there in front of you. You don't need to go very far and you don't need to work too hard. You need to get in front of them. So I advise you to spend more time having conversations than posting content. Stop immediately thinking like, well, I've got to have 3 posts a day on Twitter. I got to post at this time. I got to post at that time. I got to post at that time. Fuck that. What you need to do is have more conversations. If you're not going to have more conversations, I guarantee you your competition will. Because this game is changing. And what used to be sexy visual content is what wins the race is now a combination of sexy visual content combined with actually building a community of people. Now guess what? Social media is the wild, wild west. There are no rules in this game. None. There's no governing body that says that if I am Nike, I can't infringe on Reebok's customers. There's no governing body that says that if I'm Target, I can't go on Twitter and engage with every single person that's talking about Walmart or going to a Walmart store and posting about that. There's no rules. So I urge you to start developing this savage mentality. I'm a big pro wrestling fan. Any other wrestling fans here in the building? So I grew up watching pro wrestling in the 80s and 90s. And for those of you that aren't familiar with pro wrestling terminology, you have your faces and you have your heels. The faces are the good guys. They're the guys, the Hulk Hogans, that always win. The heels are the ones that I always liked because they were the bad guys trying to win the game. What you need to do in order to win this game of digital marketing is you need to be a digital savage. And what that means is you need to have a personality and you need to give no fucks in terms of who you offend. Now, there's a difference between being an asshole and being a professional asshole. I don't advise you to go down this route where you start trolling every single person that comes your way. But what I do advise you is to keep your finger on the pulse, swoop in where it makes sense. So I'll give you an example. When I was at Winn-Dixie, how many of you have ever heard of Winn-Dixie before? Supermarket chain, about 1,000 stores in the Southeast. Our biggest competitor was Publix. Now granted, I was very young in my career. I'm 36 now. I was 28 then. I wasn't a best-selling author or any of this other shit that's on my resume. So my CMO didn't take me serious, but I went to her one day, and I was like, hey, Mary, here's a report in real time of every single person that's talking about Publix and Winn-Dixie on Twitter. Some people love us. Some people hate us. These are opportunities for us to swoop in to every single person that's mentioning us and our competition in a tweet and give them a link where they can go sign up for our loyalty program, and we'll have like $25 free money loaded on there. And she looked at me and said, that's a horrible idea because we don't want to poke the bear. So maybe some of you can relate to stories like this. I took my plan, I went back to my cubicle, I went back on my computer and got to work. And I was really discouraged. But as I've gotten older in my career and I do stuff like this, look, the gloves are off. You have the same competitive advantage as I had working in retail. Like, we all have access, the same access. It's up to you to use it. So here's how you really become a savage marketer, first of all. Start leveraging Facebook to comment and reply to poor reviews left on your competitors' pages. That's pretty savage, isn't it? It's pretty gangster. I told you, I'm going to keep it 100 with y'all. So if you go right now whoever your competition is, and you go to their Facebook page, you're probably going to see reviews. I guarantee you not everyone loves your competition. And you're probably going to find that the community manager at that brand, one of two things happen. Either one, they haven't responded, or two, they responded with your typical corporate fluffy bullshit. This is where you have the opportunity to swoop in and win them over and say something along the lines of like, hey, we'd love to have you come over to our side, see what it's like to shop here, if we can ever be of assistance. So that's one. Two, this is so easy and it's low-hanging fruit. How many of you in your Facebook feed have ever seen a Facebook ad from a competitor? Because what they're doing is doing interest-based targeting, so they're targeting your account because you like your brand, and they essentially are targeting people that like your brand or people that have very similar interests. So if you really want to get like super gangster here, I advise you to start commenting on the Facebook ads that you see of your competition. Because here's what happens, like no disrespect to any agency folks in here. Agencies are placing these ad buys, they're getting their cut from the ad buy, and then they're not moderating the comments or the engagement for the most part on Facebook ads. So I've seen this happen over and over and over again where there are Facebook ads that have zero moderation, but you're paying for reach, you're paying for engagement, so why wouldn't you moderate? The next is obviously target competitor page fans. You can do that through ads, and that's more of like your like junior level of savagery. Now I'm going to show you what having a personality is like. You've got Chick-fil-A here. Tweets out, first of all, I'm a big Chick-fil-A fan growing up in the South. Love their persona on social media. They say here, is there anything better than enjoying one of our spicy chicken sandwiches on a Friday afternoon? Wendy swoops in and says, yes, enjoying one of ours on a Sunday. Ouch, that kind of hurts the ego, right? Because they're closed on Sunday. I think we all get that. Then you have Gina that says, now you get it. That's having a personality. Gina says here, I want to go on a date with Wendy's and take them to a real burger joint, Burger King. Burger King swoops in and says, treat her like the princess she deserves to be. Wendy swoops in and says, if you're looking for a princess, you might want to let it go, not interested in the frozen beef kingdom. Ouch. It's pretty savage, isn't it? And you see, these are examples of what's happening every single day. First of all, I tip my hat to all these QSR brands that are struggling to stay relevant. Because let's face it, us millennials, Gen Z, we don't want to necessarily be eating fast food every day. So they have to find ways to still resonate with us as people, and I think they do a really good job at that. I tip my hat to Wendy's because I think they get the award. If there was an unofficial award for the most savage brand, it's Wendy's. So if you're not familiar, if you're not following them, actually take some time to see what it is that they post, how they respond, how they engage. I consider them to be professional trolls. Because in this game, you have to be a savage. You have to be a professional troll. Again, there's a difference between being a professional asshole or just an asshole. So make sure that you're not like going to this gray area around like politics and things like that. I think you all understand. It's about having humorous fun that will then in turn get you the engagement and eyeballs that you're seeking. Now let's talk about influencer marketing for a moment. Think about who holds influence over your brand. Is it really influencers? Is it employees? Is it your C-suite? Whoever holds influence over your brand, customers, I want to say, your objective should be to create your own influencers. And you create your own influencers by a variety of ways. One, again, it's using social media to listen to what's being said about your brand, your competition, your products or services, and you start recruiting one by one people that you build relationships with. Two, it's by looking from within. Who are the employees within your organization who are savvy enough to pick up a phone and go on Instagram stories and create content of what a day in the life looks like? Now, the ever-changing role of a marketer as we start going down this path of AI and technology, it's going to change. Over the next several years, all of our roles will greatly change, and we're going to have to start becoming data analysts. We're going to have to start thinking like we're analysts that decipher all this data that's happening every single second of the day, and how do we either program bots, how do we program AI, how do we do our jobs more effectively by siphoning all this data, and also brand spokesperson. This is where the personal branding, employee advocacy element comes in. I firmly believe that within the next 10 years, you will start seeing brands replacing their logo online with actual human faces. So that means that if I want to eat healthier and I engage with Whole Foods, there's actually going to be a guy or a girl who represents the Whole Foods brand that's showing me how to shop healthy, that's teaching me how to cook healthier. If I am looking to lose a few pounds, LA Fitness will actually have, instead of fitness models on IG, they will have real people who are trainers that are using social media to do what influencers already do. So when you look at the influencer playbook, start thinking, how can we incorporate that influencer playbook into our own businesses? Now, quick PSA before I wrap up this presentation. First of all, if you want to work with me, let's make sure that we talk after this session or at some point in this conference. More than happy to work with you on unleashing your full social media potential through an audit. Also, from a community management standpoint, one of the things I hear all the time from brands is we would love to do more in terms of community management, but we just don't have the resources that can help us after hours or on the weekends. And fortunately, I have a team in LA as well as a team over in Miami. And then last, if you're overlooking your best social media asset, which is your employees, stop now and reprioritize. Every single day, I speak with brands that have thousands upon thousands of employees, but yet one or two people in that organization are the ones that are actually at the controls of what's posted on behalf of the brand, and that's something that needs to stop. If you want to get more impressions, more reach, more share of voice, you need to start deputizing your employees to be that voice for you. Now, do we have any hip-hop fans here in the room? Big rap fan, big DJ Khaled guy, represent 305. DJ Khaled has become one of the most influential people on the internet today. DJ Khaled has more people that watch him than the Kardashians. DJ Khaled's not the sexiest looking of people. He's not the most eloquent, but he gets reach. And the way he does that is because he keeps it real. So here are 7 DJ Khaled keys to social media success. And I'm going to go through these quickly because we have about 3 minutes. 1, why are you on social media? Don't play yourself by thinking that you need to be on every single social network for the sake of being on every single social network. You need to spend your time wisely and your company resources wisely on the social networks where you can get the biggest ROI and the most reach. Second is, don't think like a marketer. Think like a consumer. At the end of the day, every single one of us in this room, when we check out of our 9-to-5 job, we're consumers. And the fact that not a single person in this auditorium raised their hand that they wake up every morning and go see what their favorite brand posted on Facebook, no one in this room wants to be sold to, should be an indication that it's not just y'all, it's your customers. 3 is, who are you trying to reach? The reality is you cannot appeal to every single person online today. You're not going to win over every single customer. You're not going to win over every single account. You know, I think about one client that I worked with in the last couple of years that came to me and they said, you know, Carlos, we have about 3 million followers on Facebook, but we get very little engagement. And very quickly, I pulled out my phone. I went to one of the latest posts. They had like 8 likes. And I said, do any of these people work on your team? And it was a CMO that literally said, yes, every single one of these people work on my team. And I said, so guess what? Here's the bad news. The bad news is you actually have 0 Facebook fans. The good news is that if you stop posting the same sales and promotional rhetoric every single day and actually go back a year in time to your top performing content and you start building relationships one by one with these people, you might go from having 0 fans today to 10 really engaged super fans. And then those 10 look forward to coming back because they know that you're real and that you are authentic and you're engaging. And then they bring their friends through a share. And then little by little, you start building up that fan base. But it doesn't exist if you're not taking the time to actually slow down and see who is looking at your content and start forming relationships with them. The next is social media never sleeps. Social media is open every single second of the day, every moment of the day, every holiday. It's up to all of you as marketers behind these brands to ensure that you have a presence even when your customers are on but you're not working. And that's really tricky to do. That's where outsourcing, again, to an agency that works behind the scenes is important. That's why maybe taking some of your internal resources and putting them into shifts where instead of working like the traditional 9 to 5, maybe they're working a shift that's like noon to like 8 or 9 p.m. instead. So you can ensure that you at least have some coverage. The next is create relevant content that your audience wants, and this is the major key. What does your audience want from you when you show up on the scene? What performs the best? Take the time to actually look at your metrics over the last year. I do this with clients, and I do this personally for my own brand every single month. I'm constantly looking month over month, what performed the best? Is it videos? Is it just static posts? Is it motivational content? And I give my audience more of that. Then be loyal to your audience, and they'll be loyal to you. I think that goes without saying that community here is everything. Community is king. You need to be loyal to the audience that's showing loyalty to you. And how do you do that? It's by surprise and delight. It's by thanking them. It's by acknowledging them. I cannot stand as a customer when I tweet to a brand and they don't tweet back at me. It makes me question, why are they on Twitter in the first place? And again, I've said it before, I'm going to say it again, community is king and content itself is queen. Now, before I wrap up, friends, first of all, hopefully you've gotten tremendous value from this presentation. If you want to speak with me, I'm going to be outside. More than happy to answer any questions for you. Once again, the book, The End of Marketing, you can go to endofmarketingbook.com to get yourself a copy. I'm a big fan of data. And I think that as marketers, our jobs aren't just to come up with big, grandiose ideas, but it's to come up with big, grandiose ideas backed by data. So fortunately, being that social media has been a big key part of how we do business over the last decade, you have the power and the ability to get whatever you want. However much budget it is, however much additional headcount it is, you have that ability by proving your case with data. So I'm going to leave you on this quote from one of my favorite philosophers of all time by the name of Jay-Z, which is men lie, women lie, numbers don't. Thank you so much, Bam.